Hello, we're gonna do another one of these casual conversational videos. The one I did about a week ago on the 3-month update on full-time YouTube and leaving my job was really well received. A lot of great comments. I appreciate all the support. Got me thinking I should do more of these. Always been thinking about creating more content like this, just much more informal, casual type of stuff, kind of like podcasts, right? Podcasts are really popular. I enjoy them a lot. I've tried some on my own. I've been on a couple other ones. I consume a lot of podcast content. Played around with the idea of calling it like Exhausted with EddieX, right? Double play on exhausted because cars, obviously, and also being exhausted because working so much and so forth. And also I've done different videos like this before. Tried out something recently called Cars and Careers with my friend Matt, where we went for a drive and talked about all sorts of car related things and career and business and leadership and management and so forth. In the past also, like way long ago, Parker and I did, what was it called? Like Car Conversations and Cars or something, where we go for a drive, pick a topic, latest car news, talk about that. I've tried my own car news of the week type of stuff, but we'll see how this evolves. Eventually I would like to get to like a actual podcasts because I really do enjoy them. I listen to so many podcasts. Pretty much whenever I'm just like wandering around the house, doing chores or going for a drive, running errands, I am always listening to some sort of podcast, usually automotive themed for sure, but sometimes some other ones too. I've got a whole list of potential ideas. Obviously this one today is going to be how did I afford my cars, specifically last year when I had the C8 Z06, the R8 RWS, and the Shelby GT350R. This is a fun topic. A lot of people ask about it. It's very interesting. Obviously it's very fun owning the cars, but it also is really, it was cool to sit down and think about what are all the things that I did to get to the point where I could have those 3 dream cars at the same time. I have a whole list of other ideas too to do more of these kind of videos. We've got working a full-time job in YouTube, how to do it. Pretty much my entire time of doing YouTube, almost a decade. I had a full-time job outside, a 9 to 5, and then YouTube whenever. So it'd be cool to talk about that. I've had some people ask me about how I managed to do that. Transitioning from engineering to marketing. I started off my career as a mechanical engineer. I went to University of Michigan for mechanical engineering. Thought I wanted to be an engineer, tried working as an engineer, got bored, was like, that's not that fun, and transitioned completely to the other side of the spectrum, the marketing, right? So talking about that, starting a YouTube channel, how to decide when is the right time to quit your job. That's obviously a very big decision, something I went through. Would be fun to discuss that, how to set goals, battling burnout, balancing things in life, because burnout is pretty serious, and I have definitely gone through that a couple times. So really informal. Today we'll be talking about how did I afford my cars, those 3 cars. It's not meant to be financial advice in any way. This is just my story, how I got there, the things that I did, the trade-offs, decisions. We're gonna go hop in the Audi S7. I have a 2024 S7, set up a GoPro, go for a drive. I think it's been just the years of doing car YouTube stuff. I've conditioned myself to be very comfortable driving and talking to a camera. Like it's easier than just for some reason sitting here on a couch and talking to the camera. So we're gonna go ahead, hop in the S7 and go for a drive and talk about what kind of things I did. How did I afford those 3 cars? All right, approaching one of my favorite roads in the Audi S7. I'm actually gonna go ahead and turn on my massage seats and I will put this into dynamic mode. There we go. And before we get going, I want to make it very clear that no part of this video is meant to be formal, professional, financial advice. I am nowhere near qualified to give any of that. This is simply sharing my personal experiences, some of my viewpoints and opinions on the topic, on what it takes to buy your dream car, some of the things that I have personally done to make that a possibility. So starting kind of at the more high level, one of the things that I've strongly believed in and experienced and seen a lot of people do is having variable income makes it a lot more feasible. What do I mean by variable income? It's like having something outside of a full-time job, whether it's side gigs, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, independent contracting, consulting, freelance stuff. And why, right? If you work a W-2, that's a fixed, a 9 to 5 full-time job, you're fixed there. There are things you can do, obviously, to make more money as time goes on, perform really well in your job, go through performance reviews, get raises, maybe go above and beyond, right? Look for different roles in the same company or industry, make lateral jumps. There's ways to do it, but that is typically a fixed number. You're set a salary for 6 months to a year and it stays there. So if you want to do things that maybe push beyond that, you're going to have to save, right? You're going to need to cut back on certain things in order to make it possible. And that's totally applicable here. Like the other things that I'm going to talk about are definitely still possible. But the beauty of having like an independent side income is it's variable. You have more control of sorts to it, right? It can change from month to month. the way I viewed it, like for example, the YouTube thing is an easy example. I want to buy a Shelby GT350R, my dream Mustang, right? I need this amount of money. Well, look at the numbers. You're going to have to make 4 extra videos per month in order to make that possible, and you can go forth and do that. It takes a lot of time, energy, and risk, obviously, having something on the side, but you're almost more in control of it. And to be able to buy these things and these experiences, whatever, change things above and beyond, it will take some sacrifices and risk to do it. But I really, really am a strong believer of having some sort of variable income. A lot of people that I know who are very, very successful, rarely are they just a single job, one job, right? Maybe they're a top tier executive, or they founded a company or something like that and they put everything into it. That's like the one time, or a doctor, lawyer, or whatever. But a lot of them, like, they have so many different things going on. They have a full-time job, their business or whatever, and then they also do real estate, or they do consulting, or they do X, Y, and Z. People who do, obviously in the social media world that's getting so popular now, right? It's like, you can't only just do YouTube. You have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, affiliate marketing, sponsorships, merchandise, apparel, X, Y, and Z, so many different things. So, easier said than done, obviously, but from my personal experience, that's what I've always had. I've had a full-time job after graduating college, was already doing YouTube in college, but then went and worked as an engineer, and then always had a 9-to-5, and then took all of the time after work, weekends, evenings, late nights, whatever, to do other things. And it wasn't only just YouTube, right? I've worked on a couple other things. I did some like consulting stuff. I did a little bit of real estate, dabbled in that, like video content creation for real estate, and just try all these different things. But it allowed for my income here to live on. And then there's this little like other pile that varies. And as that eventually grew over time, it's like, okay, cool, I can buy more and more different cars. So having variable income, I think, is definitely something that can make it more doable above and beyond what the normal career trajectory path that you might be facing. The other thing is, when it comes to actually buying the cars, you got to find the good deals. That's just obvious, right? I like to look at it as not how much can I afford, how much can I afford to lose? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you're not going to keep this car forever, if you keep it forever, it's a different discussion. But if this car is going to be something you want to have for a year to 2 to 5 to whatever, 7 years, you got to look at how much you are willing to lose and able to lose. Because if you buy a car that's not going to lose value, right? Even if it's a bit of a stretch and you're putting all of your disposable income into this one car, let's just say it's $50,000, and at the end of 3 years and you've put however many miles you want on it, and it's still worth $45,000. Well, okay, fine. You've lost $5,000 after however 10,000 miles a year of enjoyment and so forth. That, I think, is absolutely worth it. But if you go buy a car that was $80,000 and in 2 years' time is going to be worth $40,000, well, that's a whole different story, right? You see how the numbers work out very differently. You're not getting any of your money back. So how do you decide if a car is going to hold its value, right? That's like a total guessing game. That is even more so no guarantees. I know the market's been really, really weird over the last couple years, but typically if a car is special, enthusiast, or stood out in its class and segment in time, it's a good buy. Look at historical data. There's so much information now from the auction sites, the websites that track all the sales. You can look at pricing, take a look at some trends, right? Is it holding well? Is it going up? Are they dropping like crazy? There are certain brands that, you know, if you buy it brand new, they're going to depreciate. McLaren, Aston Martin, Maserati, a lot of the higher end German cars that aren't necessarily special ones, those immediately come to mind. They depreciate. That is just a fact. Some people can afford to buy them brand new. They don't care. It could be a write-off. They could just chump change them. It doesn't matter if it loses $100,000 in 3 years. Those people, let them take the hit and then buy it secondhand. I've done that with many of my cars. I'm a strong proponent of, especially with like the slightly higher end German performance cars, talking things like my Audi R7, maybe like an R8, like things like that, AMGs. Buy it like 1 to 3 years used with a certified pre-owned warranty. You can find them with super low miles, well optioned, taken care of with an extended warranty on them. And because they've lost so much money, it's a fantastic deal. Could it be cheaper if you wait 5 years for it to be out of CPO warranty and even more miles and cheaper? Absolutely, but I still like the peace of mind. So like my R7 was a maybe $130,000 car, right? It was a 2016. I bought it 2-3 years old. It had 20-something thousand miles. I don't remember the exact numbers. This was a while ago, but a CPO R7 was $75,000. right? And like, that's a lot of car for the money. My R8, the first one, the manual V10 Spider, right? I bought that for 87 grand. I shouldn't have sold that. I should have kept that one because those shot up to like 150. I knew manual V10s were gonna go up, a gated V10 R8 at some point, but I was like, 5 to 10 years from now. But it happened in like 2 years. I was like, oh crap, I totally should have kept that car. I did fine. I bought it for 83, sold it for 90 or something. I don't know, whatever it was. That was quite a while ago. My recent R8, right, an RWS, it was the cheapest Gen 2 R8 you could buy at the time, 125 grand for a 4,000 mile car. It was great because brand new was 150 and a V10 Plus was 200. So you got to find cars that won't necessarily lose value. And if you look at my purchase history of cars, I try to find ones that are like special and will always remain desirable within their segment, right? The RS7 is a really cool all-around quattro twin turbo V8 luxury rocket ship. It looks good, people like it. It did really well on the internet, so that definitely was a good sign. If you go look at YouTube videos and they get a lot of views, probably means it's gonna be a car that a lot of people are gonna like, right? If you go to the BMW world, certain M3s, E90 M3s, E46s seem to have done well. Like certain ones of those could probably do well. The F80 CS, probably not a good buy because those things were a bit too expensive and they definitely dropped quite a lot. So if you bought that new, that's not a fun time. So looking at it as what are you willing to lose? What can you afford to lose? Not necessarily what you can afford to buy, but we can afford to buy is still a factor. So how have I approached those situations? Having the willingness to finance opens up more games. And this is a big can of worms I'm opening. I can already see all the angry comments like, oh my God, if you have to finance it, the bank owns it, you don't own it, it means you can't afford it. Sure, fine, okay, cool. But the reality is, like, if you can leverage your cash to do better things, do that. Again, not financial advice, but I just look at it basically, right? At the time, back when I was buying some of these cars, interest rates were low, so low. It's not the same game now anymore, but like if I was financing this car at 2.75% for 60 months and I can make 4% on cash doing something else, right? Whether it's buying a CD or a high yield savings account or any other things, real estate, whatever else it has to be, or just having it as cash for something else in case something came up, why wouldn't I do that? That's just basic math. I can afford the monthly payment. The R8 was $1,200 a month, and I put enough money down. That's the other thing. I always try to put at least 30-ish% to 40 more if you can afford it down on a car. That does buffer you from not being underwater. When it comes time to sell it and you do have a loan on it, the worst thing could be you took out a loan for $80,000. Now you still owe $60,000, but the car is worth $40,000, right? So now not only do you have to sell it for a loss, but you've got that negative equity roll. That is like the worst possible situation. So you can try to buffer that by putting a bit more money down. That's what I've done in the past, right? So just in case, at least I've just burned it as kind of like the purchase up front, the down payment, as much as you can afford. And I typically try to do a decent amount. The higher the price, obviously, the more difficult. With the Z06, I think I only put $60,000 down, and on $150,000 on the car, that's barely a third of the price. But I think that one is going to hold pretty well. So this is the controversial part, right? Being willing to finance. I financed some of my cars through my credit union. Had a great history with my credit union. I know a lot of people who will finance high-end cars too through their banks, credit unions. There's independent stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's such a thing as good debt and bad debt. You can say it's a depreciating asset. I can see the comments too. Cars are depreciating assets. You should never blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. I'm not going to change your mind if you are of that mindset, right? But if you do your research and you plan it out and you budget well and you find a good rate, you've got really good credit, put money down. I have financed cars and it's been totally okay up to this point. And yeah, it comes down to the rates, what you're willing to do and what you're comfortable with. I have been in situations where I have enough cash to pay off the car in full, but it's like, you know what? I'm okay with paying that little bit of interest. It's okay. I'd rather keep the cash in my bank account in case I need an emergency or something, or I need to buy something else or whatever it is, right? Look at houses, mortgages. That's a very standard thing, right? You're supposed to have a mortgage. Then you write off certain things. Like there are people who buy houses in cash, and I have friends who have done that. And I'm just like, holy crap, that is absolutely insane. Then there's bad debt. Please don't have credit card debt. That is bad. I treat my credit cards like debit cards, pay them off in full every month. But anyways, back to cars specifically. What was the other thing? Budget for maintenance and repairs. There's a difference between also being able to buy it and being able to afford it too, right? You can buy the car up front, But if that car is out of warranty and has insane maintenance costs and everything, you don't want to be put in that situation. I have been. My first R8, full transparency, was a bit stressful for me. It was a reach. I wasn't planning on buying that car. It was a little bit of an impulse. A friend, Scott, texted me, hey, look at this, manual V10 R8, you should buy it. And I was like, oh, R8, that's cool. I bought it. Could afford it, it was fine. But if something really bad happened, if a $20,000 maintenance bill came up, the engine needed something or whatever, I would have been in big trouble. I would have had to drain all of my money. You don't want to be in that situation because then it's very stressful, right? Like, I enjoyed the car, but not as much as I could have because of that. So budget for maintenance, repairs, things gone wrong, tires, insurance, registration. There's all of these things that go into it beyond just the purchase price. And you really want to have that set aside, whether it's a lump sum or it's a monthly thing. Maybe every month you put in $300 to handle future ones. So at the end of the year, if there's a $2,700 bill that comes up, it's okay. You have over $3,000 put away to address that. So that, I think, is a really important thing to also think about. Pivoting over to specifically what I did to afford my 3 cars, right? It was a little ridiculous. I look back sometimes, I'm like, I had a Z06, an R8, and a 350R. That's a wild lineup. I'm gonna go ahead and turn around. Actually, we go back down, or do we keep going up? It's a 15-minute stop potentially, but it gets really pretty over the mountain here. Some of these roads got a little bit washed out, hence the 1-lane roads. I'm gonna go back down. So my personal situation was I was working a full-time job and doing YouTube. So my full-time job was at HP Tuners, an automotive aftermarket company in the calibration and diagnostic space, and I was on the marketing team, running the marketing team. So that was a full-time job that I had built my career up to the point where I had a pretty solid W-2, and I live off of that. But this scales back to previously when I was at other companies, an engineer and so forth. I had a W-2, I would live off of that. So rent or mortgage, groceries, all that type of stuff would come out of that main full-time job. So I lived to the means of that level. And then the variable income, the side income, the YouTube, the random little sponsorships or whatever was going on, that was the carve money, the fun money of sorts, right? And it wasn't only just YouTube, right? I've fiddled around with like a bit of investing. Maybe some people, you're really good at investing, day trading, do that. That can be your variable income, right? Do that. I played around on Robinhood, made a lot of money, and then lost a lot of money. So that's why I don't dabble there. I don't touch crypto. I don't really do much with like fancy investing. I just kind of chuck it in a certain thing and let it sit there for a bit because that's not my wheelhouse. I'm not very skilled in that. I like to talk to cameras about cars instead. So I was working the full-time job and doing a lot of YouTube. Last year was the best year I had ever had on YouTube, which was what led me to the decision to leave and give it a shot. But it was enough that I had the variable income of, okay, cool. I can now afford a couple $1,000s a month on cars, aka buying like pretty cool sports cars. Another thing was the sacrifices, and not in terms of like hours and things like that, but the trade-offs. I was able to do this because single, living alone, not a care in the world. I was shopping for a house, got tired of renting this terrible apartment in the suburbs of Chicago, and I was like, I can buy a house. I have enough money for a down payment. This is silly. A mortgage is gonna be cheaper than rent. At least I built a little bit of equity here. So I started shopping for a house. My budget was like $450,000 to $500,000. And I found this townhouse that was $275,000 and checked all the boxes. 2-car garage in a good area, had lower property taxes, was 2,200 square feet, was nice and new enough. And I was like, holy crap, this was my train of thought. This house is more than $150,000 under my budget. I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna buy an R8. So I went and picked up that house, and then immediately, I think it was within a week, I was like on my way to buy an R8. So I used to always joke, you can live in a house, but you can't drive a car, right? Wait, no, you can, I said that totally backwards. You can live in a car, but you can't drive a house. Oh man, that did not get executed properly. That was something I could do because of the place in life that I was. Single, young, didn't have any responsibilities really, and I wasn't home much. Between the full-time job, YouTube, personal travel, I was really home 1 to 2 weeks per month. So honestly, even having a house was just a place to keep my stuff, keep the cars, and sleep occasionally, right? My life and career made it so I wasn't around much, so I definitely emphasized much more into the cars. For me personally, there's also some luck involved. I bought both of the cars at the bottom of the market, the absolute bottom. That Shelby 350R was 57 grand with 4,000 miles on it. The R8, or maybe 6,000 miles, low miles, like around 5,000 miles. The R8 was 125 grand with 4,000 miles on it. You fast forward 3-4 years to now, those kinds of prices are just unheard of, right? Like it's not even it's not possible. I got so lucky timing those at the bottom of the market, and they both subsequently went up by $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 a piece. I can't claim to have known that was going to happen. The only thing was like I looked for desirable cars of a good spec, of a nice, like more limited per se, right? A specialty car. So if anything was going to go up or hold, it would be those cars, and then just combine that with sheer luck. But we know the car market situation. There was a point in time where Toyota RAV4s were going for over MSRP, right? So when that starts happening, you're like, things are completely just effed up no matter what. And then the Z06 was my first ever new car purchase, like big. Actually, I had picked up a Ram that was new. My i8 was new, but this is like ordering brand new of this tier, $150,000 car optioned out. That I was comfortable with because I was getting it for MSRP, and the market value was like 50 to 100 grand over MSRP. So getting it at sticker price, I was like, okay, cool, I'm totally comfortable with this. Otherwise, I'm like, am I really buying this car brand new? Should I wait for it to drop to 120 grand type of thing? But no, I loved the car, wanted the car, decided to buy it. And then I was running all three at the same time. Was it alarming sometimes looking at my insurance bills? Absolutely. And I had them set as leisure use vehicles because I had a full-time daily driver, and press cars too. They weren't being used that much. So they all had mileage caps on them, so insurance was a little bit lower. But I mean, registration, I was lucky. Illinois, it was like $151 a year. Whereas if I was in somewhere like Michigan, based on MSRP, that would have been substantially more money. Sales tax also, there's these little like cheat codes sometimes. Check your state. Illinois, private party sales tax was capped at, I want to say $1,500. So the R8 private party purchase, $1,500. Same thing to Shelby. I had a friend who bought like a Murcielago or something, private party, $1,500 cap. They've changed it. They've revised it so it's not quite as advantageous. But I know there's certain states where private party, you get a sales tax break. I think Arizona, it might be no sales tax at all, if I'm not mistaken. So if that's the case, well, you better only look private party. So when I was shopping for the R8, I didn't even look at any cars at dealerships because, like, I'm going to save thousands of dollars on sales tax right now. I got to do this. This feels like a very disjointed, rambling, all over the place video. Ooh, bird. Why are you running across the road? You can fly. But that really covers, I think, a lot of what went into affording my car. I was able to take, so on my base income, and essentially my variable income was another 50% of the base income on top of that. So that's how things started to become more possible. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. Oh yeah, that's the one big thing I didn't mention. With rolling money from car to car to car, if you do well at buying cars that aren't going to catastrophically lose money, right? You can take the money from the previous car and roll it into a higher tier car and a higher tier car. That's how you see people go from driving a Camaro to a Porsche to a Ferrari to whatever. They move their way up, right? And that's what I did. I sort of when I bought my Boss 302 Laguna Seca years ago, right? Maybe it was like $10, not even, probably $5,000, $6,000 that I put down on that car. And then that rolled, right? And then I leased an i8 and burned a bunch of money because the lease, you don't get any money back. So that was silly. But then when I got a little bit better, I bought my S4, my RS7. I took the money from the RS7. I rolled that into the next car, and then the next car, into the next car, until eventually you just end up having like almost like a drivable savings account that only works if you buy cars that aren't going to lose their money entirely, right? But it ended up sort of being like another fourth type of savings account outside of my main ones that was also happened to be drivable. I was pretty comfortable with the Shelby because I was like, it doesn't really matter. Any money I put into this car is just going to sit there, and eventually I'll sell it. So that's another little thing. So the Z06 kind of feels that way too. If I were to buy another car right now today, what would it be to also kind of be that type of thing? Honestly, I'd probably buy a Shelby 350R again. I do kind of miss that car. Porsche GT3s oftentimes do that very, very well. So there are cars out there you can look at and be like, that is probably going to either hold or dip a little bit and go back up or whatever. It's still ultimately a guessing game, and you're always going to have some amount of risk in there. So there we go. Informal chat on what I did to afford my three cars. I think I covered it. Did I cover that? Yeah, I talked about it. It's really just YouTube, but YouTube only because I had a full-time job to live off of. Now, I live off of YouTube, so you can see I don't have those 3 cars anymore. I sold 2 of them in order to put a buffer into savings and reduce my monthly costs to give this self-employment thing a shot. So that like structure works if you have a full-time job to live off of. And I was in a, again, final point was I was in a very unique situation where I didn't have to pay for anybody. If you have a family, kids, wife, husband, whatever, that becomes substantially more difficult / impossible. I didn't have that, so I was like, you know what? I can just throw money at cars. It's fun. It's for the YouTube thing too. But that's how I had those 3 at the same time. It was a ridiculous fun year, really crazy experience. But ultimately, I also wasn't driving them as much as I wanted to. So ended up selling them to do this. No regrets whatsoever. But I hope there was some interesting insights there. Comment below if you have any questions, ideas, some of the other topics going forward. We'll be doing more of those. That is a very long line of cars waiting to make that light. Yeah, we're gonna flip another U-turn. Everything is clear. Not bad turning radius. All right. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below if you'd like to see more. Any questions? Obviously, feel free to comment. Send me a DM on Instagram, email, whatever. And yeah, I've got a bunch more of these in mind. We'll be doing more of these. Thanks for watching.